my boys at Popcornfrights are at it again. Man, these guys, I love them. Not only do they serve up a 30th anniversary screening of Killer Klowns from Outer Space on the big screen, but a question and answer session with the Chiodo Brothers themselves right after it. All three of them in attendance. Wow, it was absolutely amazing, and without further ado, here it is.
Let's hear it for the Chiodo Brothers.
The who? They're here? Skype at its finest.
Yes.
So,
how you guys doing?
We can't see you, but can you see us?
Oh, we can see you. We can see you. Yes. Yes. I'm putting on my reading glasses right now. Usually I wing these Q&As, but I personally had so many questions for you guys. I actually did more preparation for this Q&A than any Q&A I've done in the past few years.
That's good, because we have a lot of answers.
So let me introduce you. You got Charles Chiodo. We got Steven Chiodo.
Hey guys, how are you?
And we got Edward Chiodo.
Hey everybody.
Are you guys related?
Good time?
Yeah, did you guys have a good time?
We're real brothers.
Yeah. Now I hosted us.
How many people are there in the theater? You have a packed house?
Yeah, we had about 160 people. 160 people here for the screening tonight.
People there. Pretty funny.
Yes. I hosted a 25th anniversary screening of this film 5 years ago. As I was telling the audience when I introduced this, in 2012, when I started doing these repertory screenings, one of my inspirations to do this series was Killer Klowns from Outer Space. It was one of the films I grew up with that I never got to see in a theater because honestly it didn't make its way theatrically to Miami. At least I don't think it did. I know it wasn't a massive hit when it first came out in theaters, but it's become this huge cult phenomenon over the past 3 decades. Does the fandom that's developed over the past 3 decades for you guys make up for the fact that it wasn't a huge success when it originally came out?
It certainly does. It wasn't a huge success. Well, it was only released in 6 cities because of the VHS contract. So it didn't do well theatrically. Yes, but after 30 years, we're really surprised and really pleased to see that we've got this really powerful fan base that love our film. Yeah, 2 weeks ago we packed the 1,000-seat theater for the live concert. Live opening to be growing more popular.
That screening, because I've seen videos of that screening and I was so jealous that I couldn't be in LA for it. You had the live orchestra and you had the Dickies there as well, which funnily enough, the Dickies are going to be down here tomorrow in Lake Worth, which I thought was really cool. Yeah, that show that you did in LA looked absolutely amazing. And
well, hopefully we're going to get it on the road. You know, we're talking about that. You know, if they think it's worthwhile, they're going to take it around the country, and that would be great, and we'll have an opportunity to see it.
Well, I know you guys are going to be at Cinepocalypse in Chicago later this month. I think that's really cool as well. One of my questions for you is, you directed a series of short, Steven, you directed a series of short films from 1967 to 74 before doing Killer Klowns, which you also wrote with Charles. Can you share with us how the production first came together for Killer Klowns?
It was a dream. Yeah, let's see. Well, we came up with the idea. I was trying to imagine the most frightening thing I could think of, and it was driving down a lonely mountain road and having seemingly a car pass by. When I looked out the window, it was a clown. And you realize, you know, I'm thinking about it, if we didn't have that conversation about what was scary, and Steven hadn't mentioned clowns, there would be no Killer Klowns from Outer Space.
Yeah, but it started with something that simple. Then we kind of brainstormed and it came out of clowns, and they were killers, and
And then once we started, you know, brainstorming this idea, we used every circus motif and every trope, carnival trope that we could think of, and kind of gave it a spin, a killer spin.
Yeah, it kind of wrote itself at that point when you just started playing around with all the circus and party fun things that you do and see around the community, around your neighborhood.
I mean, it was easy. You make a list of everything circus and kid-oriented, playgrounds, cotton candy, popcorn, you know,
balloon animals,
and then it's just a natural progression, you know, to make it funny.
Yeah, and then actually how we sold the movie is we had a friend, a producer we were working with on Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater, Fred Fuchs, was the executive producer of that show, and he had some friends who had just come into a credit line, a movie financing fund, and they were looking for genre titles. And he asked if we had anything. We told him Killer Klowns. So we went in with like a 20-page treatment, a one-sheet poster Charlie had done of a clown overlooking a sleepy town, and then Stephen had done a maquette of a clown holding a puppet ray gun. We went into Transworld Entertainment, pitched Moshe Diamant and Paul Mason, and they bought it in the room.
Yeah, I mean, it was a dream.
By the way, Charles, happy belated birthday. I want to wish you a happy belated birthday.
You know, it's 30 years older, and I want to do another one before a couple more birthdays.
At least another 30 years.
Oh no, I'm sure you guys get this question all the time, but of course we'd all love to see a follow-up to Killer Klowns. If you guys were to do a sequel, which hopefully will happen, would you consider another film, a series? What kind of direction do you think you would want to take it in?
All of the above.
Yeah, we thought long and hard about that. We felt that maybe it's been too long since the first film to actually have sort of like a sequel, like a part 2. Maybe people didn't realize there even was a Killer Klowns. So we thought, well, instead of doing a sequel, maybe we'll do a remake. And then we came up with this idea, instead of a remake or a sequel, we'll do a requel. Sort of like a reimagined version with elements of a sequel and a remake.
Yeah, they introduce a new generation to a film, and then have the the earlier generations be able to enjoy it and remember the characters and the situations.
Yeah, so
we'd always add to it.
So whatever form it takes, if we're fortunate enough to make it happen, is we'd have a new clown adventure, new invasion. With new protagonists, and then maybe a visit from somebody that is familiar from the first movie.
Yeah, and ideally, the risk, we want to do a TV series because we can develop an audience slow, and we have our existing 30-year audience there. A feature film is much more risky because you have 1 week to prove, and there's so many movies coming out, filling up the theaters, that we wonder if we'd have a good chance.
Yeah, so look at the competition in the theaters nowadays. If you get 1 week in the box office, you're lucky. And our film probably wouldn't be able to withstand the competition.
Even with the great fans that we have.
Yeah, so a television series, a series of movies, we'll do whatever they let us do.
You brought up, when you mentioned TV series, something clicked into my head. One of my favorite sitcoms, I'm not a big sitcom person, but one of my favorite sitcoms from years ago that got canceled way too soon was called Titus, which of course starred Christopher Titus. Now, Christopher Titus made his feature film debut in your film. Is it true that he had more scenes that were actually cut out of the film that didn't make it into the final cut?
No, I don't believe that's true.
Yeah, no. I mean,
it was his first role in a movie, and he was in the beginning, and he was killed.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was maybe a little bit of dialogue with him in the car, but it just that wasn't cut out for any other reason than time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, if we knew he was going to be that big a star, we would have given him more lines.
I'm gonna give the audience.
But it's funny, we invited him. He was on tour. We invited him to the concert screening, but he couldn't come because he was out on tour right now. But he reminded us of a funny story. That was his first job, and he was so nervous when he drove the Jeep in with his date into the Lover's Lane. He forgot to put his foot on the brake, and he almost drove off the cliff.
That would have been bad.
Yeah.
Let's give the audience a chance to ask some questions. Yes, you, sir.
It was my first time seeing it tonight, and I saw elements. I don't know if you were.
Can you hear him? I'm just.
Can you hear me?
No, we can't hear him.
Oh, yeah, come on up here. Come on up here. Anyone has a question? Come on down. Let's come on down. It's a big theater, so people are kind of far away.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. And if you guys have questions, come on down. All right. What's your name?
Keith.
Keith. All right.
Love the movie, my first time seeing it. Met you guys recently, Spooky Empire in Orlando. You guys were there about a year ago? Or
Yes.
6 months ago?
A couple months ago.
Yeah.
Watching the movie, I saw elements, like you guys were either paying tribute, inspired, some of your favorite movies. I saw a little bit of Willy Wonka in there, Star Wars in that movie, Ghostbusters. Am I crazy here, or do you guys...
We put a Chiodo spin on some of our
Yes.
favorite things.
We did the homage to the movies that you just mentioned were homages to.
Yeah, our inspiration was the 50s and 60s.
The Blob.
The Blob, I also saw that.
Yeah, Body Snatchers,
Original stuff,
Beast in
yeah.
the Haunted Cave. I mean, all the classic black and white sci-fi movies.
Yeah, the old drive-in movies. A lot of kids don't remember what drive-ins were.
But you're right. I mean, there is a similarity because those films you mentioned were inspired by the same films that we were.
Like the scene when they first entered the, what do you call that, the funhouse spaceship,
Hurricane.
but they walked out on the ledge and it looked like it was like a mile deep. I was thinking of Princess Leia and Luke from
No,
scene in
have you
Star
ever seen The
Wars.
Forbidden Planet with Walter Pigeon?
No, I've heard of the movie. But,
Check it out.
Check that out. Yeah.
They go into what they call the Krell Laboratory in the center of the planet, and you'll see exactly where we were inspired.
Like George Lucas, we rip off from the best.
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Great stuff. I think more questions?
Yes.
Somebody waiting. Thanks again.
Oh, sure.
Introduce yourself.
My name is David. How much of the budget was spent? How much percentage of the budget was spent on cotton candy?
You know what? That was cheap. It was just cotton batting and cardboard.
Yeah, probably just $100, which is a big percentage of our budget.
Actually, but the cotton candy did actually cost us a lot of money because the scene where we, when Mike and Dave go back to the Lover's Lane and open up the Jeep and see the cotton candy interior, that was a promo vehicle that we got for free for use in the movie. But the special effects, that we used a web machine, and that's a solvent-based material that we tinted pink. And the special effects guy didn't protect the surface properly, and when we tried to remove it, we found out it destroyed the interior of the Jeep. So we had to go to another Jeep dealer and get it replaced. It cost us $2,500. So our free Jeep
Cost us $2,500.
For cotton candy.
What's your name? There you go.
My name's Mandy, and I just wanted to know what was the hardest scene that you guys had to create, because I've always thought it was the ending scene with the giant clown coming down, but I just wanted to know what was the hardest scene for you guys to make.
Well, for a lot of different reasons, yes, you know, that's the one I was thinking of. It was, we were shooting high-speed photography, which means the actor, Charlie, who was Clownzilla,
I am Clownzilla.
he had to work really quick and had to perform, and he was almost blind because of the costume, and he had to walk down that birthday cake prop that we had there.
With monster clown shoes.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult and very, I don't know, hot.
Yeah, we used every visual effects technique we could. It was miniatures, it was forced perspective, and actually shot months apart, because the first portion was shot on location in Santa Cruz, where we did all the full-size things with the ice cream truck and the clowns on the pedestal. But then, and some perspective shots of Charlie in the Clownzilla suit.
I was on a ladder.
But then months later, we reassembled at Fantasy 2's parking lot, where they recreate everything in miniature scale, and we did all the bulk of the battle.
Yeah, in the tent it was 115 degrees. I had the suit on, and the beads of sweat were pouring down my face. It was like being in the Chinese water torture, because my hands had gloves on, and I couldn't wipe the sweat off of my face. I was dying. It was like torture.
It's never any fun to be inside a costume.
Kind of figured that, but thank you for your sacrifice. It came out amazing. It really
thanks so
did.
much.
We all love it.
Charles, I have a question for you. Can you tell the audience a little bit about the backstory with Mike's rubber raft used in the theater, in the film?
Well, you know what? The rubber raft, we incorporated our childhood buddies. And the Chiodo Brothers were our childhood buddies, and Mike Tobacco was a close friend. We all hung out together, and they they took we had a rubber raft. Every now and then we'd go in the bay and go out. Well, they took the rubber raft out one night. The Chiodo Brothers and Mike Tobacco, and they went out on the Sound at night, and it got real foggy. The current took them, and they were out there. They had the Coast Guard and everybody looking for them. They were almost run over by an oil vessel, an oil tanker. And, when we finally, the Coast Guard pulled them in, and they dumped them on the beach, and Mr. Tobacco was there. Instead of hugging his son, he ran over with a knife and stabbed the raft.
So he couldn't use it again.
So if you notice in the movie, when they're sitting and when they're laying in the raft, that there are all these patches all over it. So that's a reference, an homage to the Long Island Sound incident.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Mike Tobacco was a real Casanova. Yeah. He had his little red Pinto, and he put the raft in the back where he would entertain young ladies. And he also had champagne and goblets in his glove compartment. So the Mike Tobacco you see in the movie was pretty much like the guy we knew.
Yeah, the funny story about the raft was we were filming this romantic scene where he's at makeout point trying to get over on Debbie, and for sound purposes, every time they moved, it went ooh. They made all kinds of squeaky, farty sounds. How did we get rid of that?
They had to be careful. They just they couldn't move.
They couldn't move that much because it made fart sounds when they were moving. He's trying to be romantic, and you have.
All right. Yes, we got you over here.
My name is Alan, and the most nightmarish, traumatizing cinematic moment of my childhood was Large Marge.
She's not in the movie.
Yeah.
I know. I would hate myself if I gave up this opportunity to ask. That whole special effects sequence that you created, what were some of your cinematic or other pragmatic influences when you created the Large Marge scene?
Just for those.
That was Steven did that. He worked with Tim.
Yeah, actually it was all pre-designed by Tim and Rick Heinrichs. A really beautiful sequence the way it played out. But the real challenge with that was making this clay figure that we made to animate look like like Alice Nunn, the actress. So we ended up using the wig that the actress wore, and we did a head casting and did replacements for the eyes, replacement eyes that they would pop and get really wide while I was animating the clay flesh one frame at a time. But it was all designed by Tim, and actually you can see he did something very, very similar in Beetlejuice. It's kind of a gag that Tim likes to use quite a lot. And we're really happy to be part of that because it's one of the highlights of the film.
Thank you very much.
He just brought up things that are challenging, and I actually, since I have you guys here, I just wanted to bring up another film you worked on, only because I can't imagine anything being more challenging than working on a specific film. Team America World Police.
Right.
The marionette puppet operators for Team America World Police. One of the most, it's such an impressive film on so many levels, and I just can't imagine that production not being a nightmare to work on. And if you could tell us a little bit just about that, because I'm just curious.
I think we'd all agree it was probably the most difficult job we've ever had in our career.
Yeah,
and
the most fun.
And challenging.
Even more difficult than making our own movie because it was just so uncharted territory.
It was an army of puppeteers and technicians just to mount the puppets, getting them into position in order to photograph them.
Yeah.
We were on a gantry above a 70 by 100 foot miniature set. We were 15 feet up in the air with maybe 10 to 12 puppeteers with 15 foot of strings lining up to the cameras. Those puppets don't really do anything but hang there. It was a real challenge. But Matt and Trey were really smart. They didn't really expect the puppets to do anything more than what they would normally do, which was the comedy.
Yeah, they were a quick study. They had aspirations and expectations of what the puppets could do, but then they realized pretty quickly that marionettes were pretty limiting, and they used that to their advantage and made it comedy.
Well, the comedy came from the puppets' inability, and we found out that it made it doable because if we had to coordinate, realistic performances, we would still be shooting today. We knew we did something good when the guys laughed. We knew we had it.
Yeah, imagine trying to do a fight scene with puppets, making it look realistic. It just wasn't funny, but if you see the puppets kind of waggling like this and getting tangled up, that's funny, and the guys were smart enough to realize that.
Yeah, and as hard as we worked, they worked twice as hard. It was really an amazing effort on their part. They were doing South Park at the same time, so they'd be with us all day, go to editorial, and then work on South Park.
And then they go home and work all night. It was amazing, those guys.
Yeah, and we were shooting on 2 different stages. We were at 20th Century Fox. We were also shooting in a warehouse. We were doing like 5 separate units.
Yeah, at the end, it was.
And I had the dubious distinction of traveling down to Washington, D.C., not once but twice, and posing the Gary puppet in the world's famous, in Washington, D.C.'s most famous monuments. You know, the Vietnam Memorial, the Korean Memorial, and the Lincoln Memorial.
And then, of course, I had the front row seat on the sex scene.
Oh, yeah.
The sex scene.
And the vomit scene. The vomiting scene is
the vomit scene. I was there. I was maintaining that. I had to carefully make the shape, you know, so there was a very realistic vomit puddle.
I had to bring it up because it's just such an impressive film, and you guys were a big part of that. It's just something I needed to bring up. What, you had another question? Yeah.
I'm back. One more question. Watching the movie, obviously the clowns are what makes the movie. So I mean, the brilliant, while I'm watching it, I'm thinking circuses had to have come to you guys asking, design our clowns for us, because you seem to take clowns and kick them up a notch. It's like an upgrade. Did you get any offers? Did any circuses compliment you?
We never got the call, but it's funny you should mention it, because if you look at Cirque du Soleil and the Russian troupe Aga Boom, there's a whole style of clowns that kind of contrary to your typical Ringling Brothers that kind of came out of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, we've been approached by haunts over the years that wanted to use our clown imagery, and it's been done in an unauthorized thing over the years. Universal has some killer clowns that they use occasionally.
Well, we're thrilled to know that no one has done with clowns what the Chiodo Brothers have done, and we were kind of happy that we were able to create a new iconic monster. Pennywise is a clown monster, but killer clowns are up there to me with Godzilla, King Kong. In terms of clown monsters, you think of, killer clowns from outer space.
Yeah, there were kind of creepy clowns and some, clowns with dubious backgrounds, but before our clowns, there were none with teeth.
Yeah.
Another question I had is, how many of you guys are fans of Ernest Scared Stupid? Yeah! Can you tell us a little bit about the connection design between, the creature design connection between Killer Klowns and Ernest Scared Stupid?
They came to us because they liked the designs of Killer Klowns. The director, John Cherry, did very beautiful sketches of what each of the characters, was supposed to look like. I basically did variations, and the only resemblance to the clowns was I put them in my style. So I gave them a clown style, and except some people say that we used some of the original molds, but the only thing we used was some of the ears, because the clown molds were no longer available.
Yeah, so the similarity is the designer, Charlie, and then the fact that we made them using our team of sculptors and our art direction. And then Charlie was actually on set, supervising all the creature effects on that movie.
Now,
fun set.
Now, a question I had involving Suzanne Snyder, who I had a crush on from Weird Science. Definitely had a crush on her from Weird Science. She had a knack for really picking to be in horror comedies, like really entertaining films like Night of the Creeps, Killer Klowns from Outer Space, even Return of the Living Dead Part 2, which I think is an underrated film.
That's a great one. You know what? I think it had a lot to do with her Weird Science, a lot to do with her agent. Her manager said that you have to take this script, you have to do this movie, Killer Klowns from Outer Space. It's going to be a cult classic.
Because I remember at the time, she had just finished Return of the Living Dead Part 2, and she'd been working back to back to back. She hadn't had a break, and she was exhausted. Yeah. And her agent said, no, you have to do this movie. And we were fortunate enough to get her.
One thing I want to bring up an earlier film, because it's actually a a big, another impact on my my love for film is I was always a massive Critters fan. I love Critters 1, 2, even 3 and 4. Of course, the kid in part 3 never really went ahead and did anything. For those of you who do not know, Critters 3 starred Leonardo DiCaprio as a young kid. But I'm a big Critters fan. You guys designed the Krites. Your work on that film, that was your first bigger, you did a film called, a parody film called Flicks, but Critters was really your big Hollywood film, your first debut film. How did that impact your future work in the business?
It was our first key. We can thank Kevin Yeager, who was working at the time for New Line on the Nightmare series of the Freddy. He was doing the Freddy key makeups, and he didn't have time to do it, so he recommended us to Bob Shea, and it was our first keying of an effects show.
And we learned an awful lot about how to make movies. I mean, we were working the crew every day with our puppets, but we watched the production, and in fact, Philip Dean Foreman, who was the production designer on the original Critters, we hired him as our production designer and our art director on Klowns.
What he did is, I had all these ideas for fantastic sets, but I had no idea how to build them. And he suggested this great thing of building a kit of parts, like a Lego set, like a Tonka Toys kind of a thing. So you build pieces and you assemble them in different orientations, vertical, horizontal, with tubes, with sonotubes, different sizes. And we were able to make sets out of a working kit of parts, as he called it. So I'm very thankful to Philip Foreman, because I might not have been able to pull it off doing every set separately.
And that was all due to Critters.
Yeah, do you think Critters will ever get a much-deserved Blu-ray release? And I heard there was a follow-up, like a reboot or a sequel in the works for it as well.
They're doing a web series right now called Critters: A New Binge. That's going to be on the Verizon streaming service later on this year, I think, probably by the end of the year. That's being shot right now.
All right.
Are they going to be doing a Blu-ray release of the films?
Of the original?
Of the original. Rumor of that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Blu-ray, Arrow Video just released this amazing special edition Blu-ray of Killer Klowns from Outer Space. They actually sent us a couple to give away to the audience tonight. It's just a great release, and if you guys don't have it, and if you love the film, go out and buy that release. The more people supporting, the release, this release, it's a 4K remaster, the better. So definitely pick that up for yourself.
One more question.
Yeah, we're understanding it's doing really well, and the good thing about it, there's additional supplemental material. We actually included some of our earliest high school and college films, so that's a real treat.
Yeah, there's new things on there that hadn't been seen before. Some behind-the-scenes footage that's new. It's a lot of fun.
Before we close it out, we have someone that has a request, a special request. Go ahead.
It's Mandy again. My dad is a huge fan of Killer Klowns from Outer Space. He's grown up with all the movies, horror franchise from beginning to now. And I just want to know if you guys could give him a shout out, because he wasn't able to come tonight.
And what's his name?
His name's Larry.
Larry.
Hey, Larry. Hey, Larry. Don't eat the popcorn.
God damn this dude.
And thanks for your support. That's all we need, and we promise that in the next year or so, we're going to try and get something out. We're going to try and share a new Killer Klowns with all of you.
Yeah, so, and thanks for introducing Mandy to our movie.
Let's give it up for the Chiodo Brothers. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was an absolute treat and treasure.
Hey.